introduction straight to Leon and Quinn.
Hi, I'm Les Unfordorben, CEO of OzPath Agency. Together with my esteemed cousin Frank Unfordorben, our Managing Director, we co-founded OzPath, driven by a pressing need, the shortage of skilled nurses in Australia. In the heart of this challenge, we recognise the urgency to act. The aged care sector in Australia is facing a shortfall of nearly 140,000 workers by 2025, with 30 to 35,000 nurses needed each year, according to CEDA. Through our thorough research and discovery, we found that on the other side of the world, numerous talented international nurses dreamt of contributing to Australia's healthcare. However, the path to AFRA registration was riddled with complexities and barriers, making it impossible for many to consider Australia as a career option. That's where OzPath stepped in. We streamlined the AFRA registration process, offering a faster and cost-effective journey for international nurses. Our transitional pathway not only simplifies AFRA registration, but also navigates the complexities of visa requirements, including DAMA and company-specific labour agreements. This streamlined approach ensures international nurses can start their Australian nursing career without unnecessary delays. Our strategic process helps navigate the complex process all the way through to selecting the most appropriate visa. This helps to ensure longevity and dedication from employees for healthcare organisations, leading to permanent residency for employees and retention for employers. Navigating this process correctly will ensure success, but getting it wrong can lead to a disaster. That's why you need an experienced team that knows the process thoroughly, all the ins and outs. The last thing employers want is to go through the whole recruitment and migration process only to have the employees leave after a short time. We also developed an intuitive online portal that connects nurses with employers, seamlessly making the entire process streamlined and efficient. Our approach isn't just efficient, it's also financially empowering. OzPath optimises the costs associated with AFRA registration, enabling nurses to pursue their dreams without financial burdens. With OzPath, international nurses don't just navigate registration, they embark upon a transformative journey. Our pathway enriches careers, ensuring dedicated professionals for employers and fulfilling careers for nurses. Our collaborations with industry leaders like iPass Processing, Lee Care Solutions, OzMed and Christie Migration ensure a constant supply of the world's most dedicated nurses. These partnerships provide our candidates with the best training, resources and support, making them highly sought after professionals. For employers, compliance is crucial, especially in aged care, where the new 24/7 registered nurses and care minutes requirements demand careful attention. OzPath not only meets these staffing needs, but also tackles compliance obligations head on. Our nurses fulfil all employer requirements, easing the burden on training and ensuring quality care delivery. They seek permanent residency and career advancement, making them valuable long-term assets for any organisation. So join hands with OzPath today and be part of a movement that revolutionises healthcare staffing, enhances patient care, empowers careers and fosters global alliances. So register with OzPath now at www.ozpath.agency and transform challenges into opportunities.
Hi everyone, good afternoon to all of you, to all our live viewers here in Facebook. Good afternoon. If you are in the Philippines, it's a lovely afternoon. And if you are outside of the Philippines or wherever you are in the world, good day to everyone. So we are back again in our Facebook live sessions. We're doing this on a bi-monthly basis on providing you information with regards to your pathway to Australia. So I'm Rachel Olivar, the host of AOS Paths webinar information session. And joining with me today is Sir Frank Anferdorben, our Managing Director and co-founder of AUS Path Agency, and Sir Les Anferdorben, the CEO of AUS Path Agency, to provide us more information. As we continue our mission in giving you more details about your pathway to the USA, we also have invited our very special guest, Sir Leon Landau, the CEO of Community First Responders Australia, and Ms. Gwen Nichols, the Community Engagement Officer of Community First Responders Australia. So in this webinar, we'll be talking about CPR and first aid because, as you know, it's a very important as a healthcare professional. We are able to provide our first response to the things that we need to do whenever that we encounter emergencies, especially in the healthcare settings. So, Sir Frank will be introducing our guests for today, and they will be providing to you information on the legal requirements with regards to the CPR and all the other details you need to know with regards to this requirement in Australia, as you are going to work as a nurse in Australia. So I'll hand you over now to Sir Frank Anferdorben to introduce our very special guest. Sir Frank?
Thank you, Rachel. We have today some very special guests in here, Leon and Gwyn. Leon and Gwyn work together with, as we said, with in the field in the area of first aid and CPR training with community first responders. So I'll just get, we've got a presentation here, just go through the slides, which I'll flick through. I came across Community First Response Australia with working with another one of their members of the team there with Rodney Levine. We also have there David, who can't join us today, but he's another important part of the team there. So I'll hand it over now to both Leon and Gwyn just to talk a little bit about the company and, as we can see there, their mission and the importance of community first responders and what the term community first responders is all about in regards to not just the Australian landscape of healthcare and social responsibility, but worldwide.
Thank you, Frank. Hi from me.
And hi, everyone. Lovely to meet you.
So just a bit about community first responders. So our mission is very much to save lives and build community through response. I guess we recognized in our background, so I was operations manager for a emergency response group and Gwyn was head of emergency dispatch. We realized that, or we saw very clearly that lives were lost simply because people at a scene at the time of an emergency didn't know what to do. Looking at a worst case scenario of a cardiac arrest, we know that if people are going to wait for an ambulance to arrive, it doesn't matter how quick that ambulance will be, that person will not survive if CPR is not started at the time. So even if the person leaves with a pulse, even if they leave breathing, they'll die a few days later. So our role, or where we see ourselves, is really empowering the community to act at the time of an emergency and ultimately to have a viable patient for when emergency services do arrive, and then, well, ideally to significantly increase cardiac arrest survival rates. The same messaging really applies then, if cardiac arrest is the worst case of a medical emergency, the same principle is true whether it's stroke or heart attack or choking or burns, whatever the medical emergency. Really, if we're not acting at the time the emergency occurs, the outcome of the patient is going to be severely compromised. Why first aid? Why the importance of first aid? I guess as nurses, you're looking after patients who are alive, patients who are in your care, often in a hospital, in a practice, at a school, wherever you'll be working as nurses. But that's on the presumption that your patient is alive. First aid or first response is really saying, how do we get that patient to you in the most viable, fit, savable, recoverable state? So looking at cardiac arrests, in Australia, there were 25,000 cardiac arrests last year. And the survival rates really are sitting around between the 5 to 10% survival rate, which is really low because we know that for cardiac arrest, CPR defibrillation is started straight away. Those survival rates can be really up at the 70 to 80% level. An added factor is that females have a 30% less chance of surviving a cardiac arrest than males because of the inhibitions, because people don't know how to prepare a female for defibrillation. So a lot of our training is trying to address that unacceptably suboptimal survival rate for females as well. Like we said before, we know that if people are going to wait for emergency services to arrive before doing anything, that person won't survive in all likelihood. We all, people are scared to do something. People are hesitant. They're worried that they'll do something wrong. And it's very much a matter of empowering those people at the time of the emergency to act. Next slide. All right. So then we get to the workplace. And there's one thing about, treating a patient who's in the street or a sporting event or a social event where there isn't necessarily a duty of care. Once we get to workplaces, especially for health professionals, there then is the issue of a duty of care, a duty to do what's reasonable to assist that patient. If someone's got medical training, obviously what's reasonable, the bar is higher, and we're empowered to make a very real difference to the outcome of the patient. There's an expectation that we will provide that treatment at the proper level of the proper standard and the proper standard of professionalism. So in Australia, and I'm assuming around the world, so CPR at a minimum is compulsory for all nurses and midwives, and CPR accreditation needs to be renewed annually. It's actually interesting that doctors really only, in some areas, only need to renew their CPR every 3 years, which is a little bit bizarre. But there is, as there should be, a requirement for nurses to have their CPR accreditation renewed annually. When it comes to first aid, which is CPR plus that whole gamut of other medical conditions, so first aid is preferred by employers, and it really does make a big difference when it comes to employability. To be limited to treating a cardiac arrest or choking or unconscious is very different to an employee who's able to treat, whether it's burns or fractures or head injuries, spinal injuries, poisoning, bites, stings, the list goes on. When it comes to employability and attractiveness for joining a organization, having a full first aid certification does make a big difference. And areas where, you may be interested in providing your services or becoming part of the team could include things like first aid standby services. So we provide first aid standby services at football games, community events, school sporting events, concerts. So first aid services, education and training. So first aid is a huge issue there, especially in schools. So being a nurse at a school, community groups, lifeguards, if you're interested in swimming and lifeguards, having a full first aid certification makes a big difference to your employability. So what do you learn? So if you're taking part in a CPR only course, it does cover more. So there's a lot on safety. There's a lot on accessing emergency services, whether that's you being alone with a patient or you being in a remote area. There's a lot of remote areas in Australia. So different methods of different methods, whether technological or simply planning, that can be put in place to make sure you can access that emergency care as quick as possible, and giving you especially Gwen, her background is in dispatch, so giving you a clear understanding of the quickest and most efficient ways of accessing that emergency care. Managing an unconscious patient, so an unconscious breathing patient, choking patient, cardiac arrest, We do a lot on defibrillation, so we don't train with a generic standard defibrillator. We use replicas of actual defibrillators so that you're familiar with different kinds of defibrillators that are available on the market and won't be hesitant or apprehensive to use a defibrillator, even if it's a different brand to what you practiced on. So we use a range of defibrillators when we train with you. We train in line with ambulance high-performance CPR protocols, the idea being that when ambulance arrives, there's smooth handover and teamwork with the ambulance crews that do arrive. And we cover the legal aspects around duty of care and your responsibility at a scene. That's CPR. First aid then includes everything that's in CPR, plus a wide variety of topics ranging from stroke, heart attack, anaphylaxis. That's probably flavour of the month over the past few years in Australia. And there's a lot of regulation, focus, especially in school environments, around anaphylaxis, risk mitigation, anaphylaxis plans. A lot of focus on anaphylaxis. And I guess when, the flip side of it is when things do go wrong, there's real microscope around it. On the other hand, treating anaphylaxis is very straightforward. So recognizing the signs and providing immediate treatment makes a huge impact to patient outcomes. Asthma. So I don't know if you've heard, but Australia is a hugely, especially Melbourne, but Australia is renowned for its allergies. So when it comes to asthma, anaphylaxis, or general allergies, there's a lot of it around. So having familiarity and knowing how to treat it is really important. Fractures, soft tissue injuries. So a lot of sporting events, a lot of sporting injuries in Australia. Burns, we're quite passionate in the area of burns. There's a lot of misconception with regard to different treatments, which can be quite disastrous for patients. Ranging from aloe vera to butter, to egg whites, potato peel. A lot of different misconceptions, which we do address, making sure the patient does get the best outcome possible. Head injuries. So there's a lot of sport in Australia. Head injuries, spinal injuries are very common, especially in schools, sporting fields, etc. And there's a lot of focus around, especially concussion in the sporting context. So we spend quite a bit of time on that. Bleeding, poisons, bites and stings. We have a lot of nasty little critters in Australia. Australia's a gorgeous country. We do teach you about bites and stings, just so you can feel safe and secure and enjoy the beautiful country. How long do sessions take? So CPR generally takes face-to-face 1.5 to 2 hours, and there's about 1 to 2 hours of pre-work to do online. Similarly with first aid, the pre-work's a little bit longer, so 2 to 3 hours, and face-to-face is that 1.5 to 2 hours for CPR plus around an hour of face-to-face with the remainder of practical first aid topics. We're really flexible with where you want to run your courses. I'm happy to come to you. We've got a great office here, a training environment here. We can do it with OzPath. So it's very flexible. You can do it in your workplace, whatever you're most comfortable with. So I can't see the little writing up top. There you go. Okay, so yes, there's an OzPath training day, which Frank will tell you is on the...
You can hardly see that there. Unfortunately, I don't know why it's not rendered properly. But at the OzPath head office in Essendon, Victoria, for those people that are actually in Melbourne, we'll put it into the... I'll ask Sir Les to put it into the chat there. The address is 1005A, Mount Alexander Road, Essendon in Melbourne. We will be having a OzPath training day on Monday, June the 3rd, and that will be between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Right, so that's for people that are actually in Melbourne, Australia. And we're looking at doing their a first aid and CPR training. So that's going to be a 3-hour session there, and it's a special price that we've got there of $150, which is reduced from the normal $165. And that's just a special AusPath only price. You're not going to find that anywhere on community first responders websites or anything like that. I think Leon, the sign of the times, we're all raising costs. I think the normal cost of training services will be increasing, I think, in the financial year. Is that right?
Yeah, there are other things going up around the world. So yeah, a lot of pressures.
So,
but we're trying to do the best for you guys. So
yeah, look, $150. We know that's a really sweetheart price there. So for those people that are actually in Melbourne, definitely, you want to take advantage of that. So for more information, obviously, you can come through to us at admin@auspath.agency. So Les will put that in the comments there as well. Or if they wanted to come directly through on our website, there as well, we'll have a link onto there as well, so people can actually find us through there. But always admin@auspath.agency if you're interested in there. Payment either prior to the day or on the day. So yes, you can turn up and pay on the day, but if you don't pay, you don't get in. As simple as that. Now, the other thing that I must say though is that numbers are strictly limited for this event in Melbourne. So we are restricted to 20 people at a time per session. If we do have demand, we'll publish and let people know of further dates as well. But we'll try to make this a regular event as well, depending on demand. So at this stage, we'll probably be looking at doing it monthly, but hopefully there'll be ongoing sessions to come through. Now, you always feel free to always inquire. Come through at admin.auspath.agency. If there is a session to be in your area, we'll let you know, and we'll ask Leon and Gwyn if you could kindly participate in those sessions. Sometimes it's good to have those numbers in there, especially if it's a civil community-based session coming back through, that you can jump on the back of that there as well. So as per always with us, in regards to the international sponsorships are available now in Australia. So what we'll do is, I've got a couple of questions for you here, Leon and Gwyn. We'll just go through a couple of those here now, and then we'll open the floor back to Rachel and the general community of people listening for a Q&A session. So just a couple of notes that I've put through here, just to go through with you. We do talk about a duty of care and the legal requirements for CPR and first aid. Now, does that extend to, in a healthcare organisation where our nurses would be going to work? Does that refer to the facility itself, or more the individual professional? Where is the legal onus on? Is it, part of your profession, your registration, you have to personally have that? Or is it something that the organisational facility should be providing the availability of instruction to you?
So when it comes to occupational health and safety, yes, it does rest with obviously the employer needs to ensure that, their staff are trained and have the correct accreditations, etc. But there is a personal liability when it comes to occupational health and safety. So if there's negligence by an individual, that's an issue.
No problem. And as part of your nursing registration, is that an AFRA requirement for the first aid and CPR?
So CPR is Sorry? So CPR is a requirement, first aid is a recommended.
Okay, thank you. And I'll put down there a little cheeky comment there, who pays, but obviously that's up to the facility as well. I do know that in most organisations that I've ever worked with, and this is more for the international nurses coming through AusPath, in nearly 90% plus of all the organisations that I've ever worked in since 1989 as a health professional, the organisation will either pay or reimburse, or there'll be a part reimbursement thereof. And that's the standard in Australia, because they do know the importance of the requirements for CPR and first aid training. The other one there that I've put in there is in regards to the yearly training for CPR. Is that a recommendation or requirement based upon upskilling or retaining skills and making sure that you do have the skills, or is it more a scope issue where the actual scope of the care that you're giving changes from year to year, and that's why it's yearly?
So if you do, for example, full first aid, that certificate lasts 3 years, except for the CPR component. So when you receive your certificate, it only has a 12-month validity to it. So you'll need to upgrade it every year. In a practical sense, it changes constantly. The world of resuscitation, of CPR, has changed immeasurably in the last, I've been training for probably 15 years. And again, I was operations manager largely during the 4 or 5 years of COVID. And the changes to resuscitation technique, high performance CPR, the importance of compression over breaths when it comes to rate, limiting hands off chest, full chest recoil, the changes to cardiac arrest protocols just in the last 12 to 24 months have been remarkable. So, people out there are still training CPR with individuals on individual mannequins. That is so far from reality, it's not funny. So when we train, we start off with individuals doing CPR, and then we very quickly migrate to you working in teams on different defibrillators, working on completely clothed female mannequins that are bra'd and dressed. So we make it very extremely practical, because the world of resuscitation changes constantly.
And we are aware that, as far as in the community, that, any intervention is better than none at all. But, to have actually someone in there that knows what to do, okay, in an emergency situation, just in case it, yes, ring 000, the first thing out there, and be the first person on the scene, make sure that the environment is safe. So a lot of health professionals will have gone through, and even those who have been, nursing, for example, for a long time, they will remember their basic, Dr. ABC, or now it's ABCD for defibrillation as well, and possibly E that you guys would go into. But then also, they're going to also know, and there'll be certain things within their mindset. For example, mine, I remember back in the 90s training. It was back then. It was 2 breaths to 10 compressions. And that was it. That's how you were trained. That's what you did. And we know now that that over a lot of research and a lot of worldwide research and data, that those ratios have changed, and they do change. And whether or not it's for an adult, for an adolescent, or for a child, again, there's different ratios there to actually know and to be aware of. You did talk in regards to not just the social responsibility, but your professional responsibility there as well. Doing first aid and CPR training when you're actually looking for a position in Australia does make you, as you said, a lot better for employability. All right, so employers are going to look at your skills, your skill set. And if they can see that you've got first aid and CPR there, you're going to be much more likely to go to the top of the list for consideration there as well. So, it's all about, we talk about professional development. Well, this is probably one of the most highest things that you can actually do. And it is a compulsory recommendation for the first aid, obviously, there, but the CPR to make sure that you're over it all. That's absolutely critical. The only other thing that I had on here is Leon and Quinn just talking about, we talk about community first responders in the name of the business there as well. Can you give us an example of some real-world examples just out there in the real world, not in the clinical situation, where, that personally that may have come into play for you?
You saying CPR resus?
Yeah.
Where do we start?
I've got a few.
Okay, go do the block of flats.
Well, this is an example of where you can make a huge difference. So I worked as a dispatcher, and so I received a call for an elderly gentleman who hadn't been feeling very well. So he was sitting in a chair, didn't look great, so his son called. I said, "Is he awake?" They said, "Yeah, he's sitting up, his eyes are open." I said, "Is he talking?" They said, "No." So I said, "Is he breathing?" And the son looked at him and he was like, "I don't think he's breathing." So I dispatched it as a cardiac arrest, and Leon arrived.
So I was literally around the corner, went upstairs, there was a block of flats, walked down the corridor, and there's 4 people standing in front of this gentleman. He's sitting in a chair. I'm only seeing his back. I walk up to him and he's in cardiac arrest. Get him on the floor, CPR, defibrillation, the fire brigade comes here for cardiac arrest, so fire, ambulance arrive. He lives with a pulse and he tragically dies 3 days later. The history of the event was that this gentleman had chest pain for 4 days. He couldn't get hold of his doctor, his family doctor. He didn't want to go to hospital and lie on a trolley for 20 hours. So he was quite a stoic guy, and he figured he'd ride it through. A couple of days later, he says to his son, "Let's go for a walk. I'll walk it off." And he goes for the walk, comes back, doesn't feel well. Son gets him a chair, and he passes away. So here you've got someone who's had symptoms for a number of days. So there's no blame. The idea is to learn from this. But he had symptoms that weren't recognized, or the severity of them wasn't recognized. He then, being blunt, he dies, and his son doesn't recognize it. So you really can't get a more obvious or serious medical condition than passing away. And it was not recognized. You then had 4 people standing there who probably didn't feel empowered or confident. They didn't want to hurt the person they loved, so they weren't doing CPR. They waited for a response, which was incredibly quick, but you couldn't save him. And it was the perfect example, perfect example of how a chain of survival collapses, which would be in stark contrast to...
So there was a case where a man collapsed at a tram stop, and so 2 girls were crossing the road. They saw him collapse. They called 000. There was a man walking his dog who knew CPR, so he started CPR, and then fire arrived, ambulance arrived, and he went off to hospital with a pulse. So yeah, literally the people standing around you can make the biggest.
Is what makes a difference.
It is, yeah, absolutely. Yeah. The only other thing that I've got here as well is just I put a note there in regards to concussion and loss of consciousness and head traumas and that in regards to sports and things like that. We often, OzPath are responsible for obviously, the candidates and managing their expectations and looking after the nurses and their families, but we do have a responsibility there for our employer clients out there, and we assist employers in preparing questionnaires for the candidate interviews. One of the questions that's often included by, especially, for example, in aged care employers looking for nurses, they have a question in there in regards to witnessed and unwitnessed falls. What do you do when you're the first responder on the scene, when you find someone, on the floor, in there, and the first aid that comes in there? And invariably they get it wrong. All right, so could you maybe just go through a few things out there, the process, the thought process, what the nurses should be doing? Again, we talk about danger response and the ABCs, so to speak. But we're also talking about there is that duty of care. So can you expand on that a little bit, Leon?
Yeah. Well, actually, do you want to talk concussion?
Sorry.
Gwynn's very passionate about concussion. So concussion, especially in the sporting sense, is a very, very hot topic. So there's been a number of high-profile footballers and sporting professionals who have had very unfortunate outcomes from repeated concussions. So there's a huge focus on concussion. But if we take it off the sporting field into aged care facilities, We have attended hundreds. Falls probably being the greatest type of call that I respond to. And the issue with falls is that whether it's someone who falls in their home or someone who falls in a facility, if an emergency service is called, a fall is rarely just a fall. And the challenge for the health professional, especially an emergency responder, is to be able to recognize the potential for the difference between just a fall and something more serious. When it comes to head injuries, the problem is that if you fracture your arm, so you've got your bone on the inside and you've got soft tissue on the outside, so there's room to move when it comes to swelling and bleeding, etc. When it comes to the brain, you got the bone on the outside, so really the only thing that's going to be impacted or injured is going to be brain. And you can't see inside someone's head, which is probably a good thing. But what it means is that we don't know. Until the person is scanned in hospital, we don't know. And the problem with head injuries is that the symptoms of a serious head injury may manifest hours later. So there's two factors, I guess, when it comes to a head injury. One is going to be, what are their physical symptoms? So do they have symptoms of concussion or a potential brain bleed? Dizzy? Are they dizzy? Do they have vision disturbance? Amnesia, nauseous, head pain, neck pain, etc. Vomiting. So do they have physical symptoms? But the other vitally important characteristic is mechanism. So if someone has had a fall from a height, even take it a meter, they've had a fall, they've landed on their head and or back, even if they have no symptoms, need to assume that there's a head spinal injury. The complexity with you might say elderly or older people, I mean, it can affect younger people as well, but generally the older group is that often they're on blood thinners because of cardiac issues. And if they're on blood thinners and then even have a mild head injury, that could result in an immediate bleed. So it's looking at history, mechanism, and physical symptoms, which really means when it comes to head injuries, play it really, really conservative. And just remember, when you're dealing with a head injury, you're also dealing with a potential spinal injury. So you're dealing with immobilization, etc. So when it comes to anything head and neck, just be really, really conservative.
Yeah. Got another question here in regards to aged care again, in regards to burns and hot water. What can you tell us a little bit about there with the things that we need to be aware of in aged care facilities, especially with hot water?
Stay away from it. So in Australia, there actually are pretty tight regulations on maximum temperatures for taps, but that doesn't stop issues with urns, irons, urns, things like that.
Cups
so schools,
cups of tea.
Quinn's thinking of one that's very specific. Yeah. So there was a lady, we went to a call in an old age care facility, and a lady had boiling tea poured over her. And the staff were amazing. They took that patient. It was over most of her body, so they had to put her in a shower. I mean, obviously only cool the part that's affected because you don't want to start causing hypothermia. But they put her in the shower. We arrived, and you pretty much couldn't see any evidence of a burn. That was in stark contrast to a new mother who was breastfeeding her newborn baby. Her husband was lovely and made her a cup of tea, and she spilt it over herself and the baby, and didn't do. We only arrived there a few minutes later, but didn't put on cold running water, and the differences were quite stark between immediate proper treatment and non-proper treatment. When you're dealing with especially older demographics or people from overseas, there's different cultural approaches to burns. And they're remarkable. I mean, it's, in Australia, there was the aloe vera butter thing. Different countries, there's putting
skins and
cream.
Yogurt.
disastrous, absolutely disastrous. The other issue with burns is dangers. You need to remember dangers to yourself. So if there's if it's an electrical burn, you touch that person. If they're live, that's a pun, right? If they're electrified and you touch them, electrified. If they've got anything hot on them and you touch them, you get burned. So dangers is a huge issue.
And burns are very high risk of getting infected, and the elderly often have very fragile skin. So
the paper thin, tissue paper really that the burns and skin tears and all of that is very, very much into play. I was just going to open it to the audience to, please feel free to ask any questions there. And I might just get back to Ma'am Rachel. Rachel, do you have any comments?
Thank you, Gwen and Leon, for that short discussion. I think you brought me back to my nursing. I've been out of nursing and I've not been working in the hospital for quite some time now. But when you were discussing about burns, about physical symptoms, it makes me think about nursing again. So thank you really for reminding our nurses as well that they should have an updated certificate with regards to their certification for the CPR and first aid, because this is a basic requirement of a healthcare professional. And you also mentioned that it will be 3 years for some countries. Yes, I would agree with that. In the Philippines, it's usually valid for 3 years. So just to recap what we mentioned, just to review what we mentioned earlier, Frank, in Australia, the validity of the certification will just be valid for 1 year, or is it still 3 years?
So CPR is only 1 year.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of the first aid component is 3 years.
Okay.
So if someone does first aid, which includes CPR, that CPR component has to be repeated every year.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then every 3rd year, they do the full first aid.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for that information, Leon. So if you're going to compare nurses who are in the Philippines, they have a different setup. And for those nurses who are actually currently in the Middle East as well, they have a different setup. For the nurses who are in the Middle East, a lot of them are also interested of going to Australia. So this information might be also very helpful for them. So those nurses working in the Middle East, most of them, they got the CPR, the first aid certification, and it is being provided by the hospital or the facility that they are working. How does it work with Australia, Frank? Is it the employers who's going to pay for it? Or is it the nurses who's going to pay to Community Responders Australia by themselves and be able to invest in that amount?
Yeah, look, for the course costs and that, it's usually going to be, you'll find that a lot of employers will actually come through. So they can actually come through to OzPath as well. Obviously, as we're talking to different employers out there in the field, we're promoting community first responders to them as an option for them. I actually had a conversation with an employee yesterday that told me, she didn't think that nurses needed to have first aid and CPR training because they're nurses. They should know. So, and unfortunately, that can be a common thing that we see out there as well. So, by all means, as Leon and Quinn have identified, it is a requirement of your registration that you should have your CPR training every year. All right, so your first aid would come into play as well every 3 years. That's probably a little bit easier to have the conversation there with your employer to say, as an organisation, to be able to give the best outcomes of care for their residents and for their patients, for example. They should be looking at a organisational wide structured program. For best practices, let alone for the community care and for the best care that they can provide for services. They should be looking at that first aid. But by all means, I would encourage every nurse out there listening to this and in the future, whether it's years down the track as well, just to remember that CPR training is vital. So you really should be paying for that. It's going to be very unlikely that an employer won't reimburse you for that. But, the first thing to do is always have the conversation with your employer, because by the very fact of you having that conversation, it's going to go a long way in making sure that that the awareness is there. We want to make sure that the word is getting out there, that the message is getting out there as well. And to those employers that don't think that is compulsory, maybe they just need a little bit of education there as well. So,
there's also a difference between once you're already with an employer and when you're going for a position. So,
yeah,
for example, with our first aid services, we definitely prefer candidates who already have their qualifications when they're coming in, and then going forward, it's a different story.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So go ahead.
So as you mentioned that it will be a requirement as one of the procedures for the pathway of the nurses. So my follow-up question with that will be, will it be needed by the employer before they're going to employ the nurse in a certain facility, or can they do it once they are already in the facility?
Yeah. When they're in the facility, talking to employers there, it's always going to be the consideration. All right. So the employers will always look to those candidates being presented for them that have got the certificate, or if they can show that they're actually willing to do that or in the process of doing that. So that goes a long way for consideration for all employers, and it just has to be part and parcel of their own HR management that you're going to see that the credentialing is critical for all employers to make sure that their staffing levels and their staffing that their duty of care, it comes back to that duty of care, is being met by the staff that are actually put into place to manage and to look after residents and patients.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So as you also mentioned, this question is for Leon and Gwen. As you mentioned that the discussion will be first, it can be conducted online, and then after which there will be a face-to-face discussion for the training. So since there is a partnership with AOS Path Agency and the CFRA, so which locations are these trainings be provided?
Well, we would be looking at a monthly session in Melbourne, Victoria, and we can actually ask our partners out there. So we may actually have locations as well in Sydney in the near future. But by all means, definitely come back through to Ozpath Agency, and we will put you in touch with community first responders, and they'll actually be able to let you know where different sessions are coming up and whether or not you can actually join into different community sessions or individual sessions as well. But Leon and Gwen will be the best people to talk to in regards to availability and session dates.
Okay. This question goes to Sir Les. Since we are providing platinum package to our nurses through the AOS Path Agency, is there a special discount that CFRA can offer to our nurses?
Do you want me to answer that, Les?
Yeah, you can answer that, Frank, because we haven't quite worked it out exactly.
No, okay. Well, Leon and Gwen have actually, we do actually have a discount out there, which we put onto the slide. So, Ma'am Rachel, I'll just get you to pop those slides back up there. So the special that we have through Ozpath Agency is $150 reduced price down from $165. And the CPR price, if you're going to do that just stand alone on the CPR, the special Oz price discount there is $70, reduced from $75 as well. All right. So as part of the one of the men as part of community first responders here, we actually have the money man here, Rodney. So Rodney, are you happy with that?
Oh, Rodney.
See what Rodney says about the discount.
Yeah, what do you think about the discount prices there, Rodney?
No, not happy. Who agreed that discount?
Where did you pop up from?
Here's one I prepared earlier. So yes, we do. So we do have that discount available to Ozpath members, and that's being graciously given by community first responders out there as an exclusive special to everyone coming through. And of course, that's part of our platinum package there as well. You do get that benefit. But then as part of the initiative, we'll also do that. We'll advertise through certain days and times. So as we said, we have there Monday, 3rd of June, between 6 p.m. and 9 p.m. Les has got there at 6 p.m. and 8 p.m. So I think if we can just edit that, it will actually be a 3-hour session, 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. To do CPR and first aid training on the evening of Monday, the 3rd of June. So that will be at the Lee Care Solutions office, Lee Care being one of our key stakeholder partners. That is located at 1005A, Mount Alexander Road, Essendon. And there is plenty of parking around, especially that time of night, that you'll get on-street parking pretty much directly in front or across the road from the office there. And I will personally be in attendance on that day there as well. All right, so as I did mention though before, numbers are limited. So first in, best dressed, we are limited to 20 applicants per session. That's just for space. We can't fit any more into the boardroom than 20 people at a time. All right, so if you are interested, just reach out to us at admin@ozpath.agency or through our website, and we'll add you to the list and have that available to everyone in Melbourne.
Thank you, Frank. Thank you for that information. I think for those nurses who are currently already in Australia, so they can communicate with AUS Path Agency, and you can email at admin@auspath.agency if you need CPR and first aid. And if you are a nurse who are still outside of Australia as of this time, maybe you can think about what CFRA is offering to us whenever you need it already, once you are already in Australia as well. With regards to the online, for example, they are about to already enter Australia, Frank. Can they start the online and just do the face-to-face later on?
I might throw that back to Leon.
If you're going to arrive shortly,
If you're
then,
imminent.
yeah, then maybe. Otherwise, you're better off doing it just before the course.
Mhm.
You'll get more out of it.
Great. And it'll be fresh in your mind there as well. All right, so you don't want to have a staggered approach, stop, start. I think Rodney, that's probably going to be the best. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And I think I don't have any questions coming from our audience. I'm not seeing any question. Just to acknowledge Princess for her greetings, and as well as to Justly as well. Thank you for being with us, and to all our live viewers as well. Thank you for being with us on this Facebook live session at AUS Path Agency. Sir Les, would you like to have any? Do you have any information to our audience?
I think most of the information's already been said by Leon and Gwyn and Frank as well. And thanks, Rodney, for stepping in there as well and offering our members that fantastic discount offer, which will immediately put on our platinum packages approved. Just a quick question, though, to Leon and Gwyn. Is there any laws in Australia, such as Good Samaritan laws and things like that, in place where if a nurse, for example, or an allied health professional sees somebody having a cardiac arrest, are they obliged legally to assist that person, or can they just sort of turn a blind eye and walk off? Is there any laws in regards to that?
That's really interesting. Thanks for that question, Les. Much appreciated. As far as I know, doctors do have a higher level of responsibility. As far as I know, all other allied health does not. So we're talking about just someone walking down the street and you see someone unwell. Where that changes is, for example, if you're involved in a car accident. If anyone's involved in a car accident, then there is a duty of care. If you start caring about someone, like you can't turn around an unconscious patient and start treating them, then go look at their face and say, hey, I don't like you, and walk away. So you need to do what's reasonable. But as far as I understand, there's no difference between a nurse and any other member of the public in a public setting.
Okay, thank you for that.
And Leon, is there just an extension of that in regards to Good Samaritan laws? Is there a level of protection against those that, in best interest, that they've tried to help someone in an emergency situation? You often hear of these, horror stories about, someone trying to save someone's life and then they potentially get sued or something like that for whatever reason.
So not in Australia. So there's the Good Samaritan Act, there's common law, there's the Australian Resuscitation Council, which says any CPR is better than no CPR. The curveball is that the only state in the country that doesn't have a Good Samaritan law is Queensland. But again, as far as we know, there's never been a prosecution of someone who's treated someone. With everywhere else, and we know Queensland's a bit different, everywhere else there is a Good Samaritan law. So it's very much encouraged to help people out, which is why we do what we do. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you very much for that, Leon. And back to you, Rachel.
At this point, I think we don't have any further questions anymore. And maybe Rodney would like to have any. Maybe Rodney has any message for our nurses.
I just want to encourage you. The work that you're going to do here is going to be fantastic, and we really need that kind of care. And as CFRA, what we are looking at is we are looking to encourage you to come on board and to help the country, because you'll make a difference here for us. And we're happy to offer you this discount because you guys are important to us and for our continued existence, and you're going to make a difference to this country. And they really do encourage good people on board. And thank you.
Thank you, Rodney.
Thank you, Rodney. That was so much appreciative of you for what all the nurses are doing. Thank you very much. How about any message coming from Leon and Gwyn?
No, we're good. Very excited. Love you guys.
Well, thank you, everyone. Look, we really look forward to seeing as many of you as we can on Monday, the 3rd of June, at the session in Melbourne for those that can attend. And as we said, we know that there's high demand there, so that if you do miss out on the first, because we'll probably be fully booked pretty quickly, just keep in communication with us, and we'll let you know when the next session is going to be.
And I just would like to read what Princess said here. Thank you very much for the information and for sharing your wonderful knowledge, especially in the tips that Leon and Quinn mentioned earlier.
So nice. Thank you, Princess.
So guys, if you have any concerns with AUS Path Agency, I just want to mention in here that you can visit the website of AUS Path Agency at www.auspathagency. And you can also join our platform at the www.crm.auspath.agency. And if you haven't registered as a member, please register through this www.crm.auspath.agency. To all our special guests, Leon, Gwyn, and Rodney, thank you very much for sharing your information, and thank you very much for the wealth of knowledge that you have shared to our audience. We really thank you for your time, and to Rodney as well. Thank you for everything that you are doing. To Leon and Gwyn, thank you very much. And to Sir Frank and Les, have a great afternoon to everyone as well.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Bye. See you next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.